Hey, To The Point podcast listeners, 2020 was a stellar year for the podcast, and we are super grateful.
And a couple of weeks ago, we released the top 50 moments of the podcast. But in all reality, it really wasn't the top 50 moments. It was more just like a highlight show. But there were some moments that we call like the pinnacle moments that are now baked into really the culture of the show for not just us as hosts, but really our listeners.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And let's take a look at clip number 1 with Michael E. Gerber, who was in studio, the author of the E-Myth.
First of all, you said something which is so abrasive to me. You absolutely have to stop saying this on your show from this day forward.
Okay.
Tips and tricks. Tips and tricks might be a dog and a cat, but if anybody comes on here and starts giving you tips and tricks, shoot them.
Fair enough. Lesson learned. Paul, you know I have changed it to knowledge and wisdom, and no longer do I use tips and tricks.
Yeah, and even when you're about to say it, you catch yourself. So you learned something, but I learned something too, man. And that's just about being direct and having the confidence just to say what's on your mind. And no one is better than Michael E. Gerber.
Well, yeah. Well, guess what? Speaking of knowledge and wisdom, we are lucky enough, we are fortunate enough to have our partner Gary Vaynerchuk on the podcast. Man, that was one for the books, right, Paul?
It was, and I'll never forget, sitting with you. We were, it was an important day, but we were treating it like game day, which is every day. But there was just a little bit inside of you and me that was like, is Gary V really going to show up for our podcast? It's pretty funny.
Yeah, and he actually was a little bit late, remember?
Oh my gosh, yes. And we were like internally freaking out, like, oh, wait a minute. Did we not send the email to his assistant? But he showed up.
Hey,
he was like, hey guys, sorry I'm late.
The pucker factor was at a maximum. So let's take a look at clip number 2 with my man Gary Vaynerchuk.
Gary, you mentioned realizing you don't mean shit. How important is that?
I've come to really lean into my humility. I have a lot of confidence. I think my communication style has established my bravado and confidence, but I've started to realize my superpower is humility. Like, I genuinely don't think I'm special for real. I realize I'm accomplished. I realize that I'm kinder than most people that are accomplished. I realize I got gift for gab. I got it. I just don't think that means that I'm special. I don't know how to put it. It's kind of like it's, you know what, Paul is, but like, it's kind of like being tall.
Gary did such a good job on the podcast, and it's just unfortunate that he's literally the only guest we've ever had that their Wi-Fi cut out. So he didn't really technically get to say goodbye. So maybe we'll have him back for his official farewell.
That's right. He's going to be out here in Phoenix for our Rhino X meeting in March, so maybe we'll get him to redo it. But I loved your question on here's the keys to Vayner HVAC. What does Gary Vaynerchuk do? Dude, that was money. So Gary's not the only celebrity we've had on the podcast. We've actually had a few. But one of my favorites was a guy named Bob Saget. You know, Danny Tanner.
Gosh.
I know you've heard of him when he was on the podcast. What was so great about that is that we had him on the podcast with the real Frank, Mr. Frank Besedniak. And we brought Bob Saget on to wish my man, his doppelganger, Tall Paul, a happy birthday. Let's take a listen. Listen, Frank, another thing. Have you ever seen the show Full House?
Yes.
With Danny Tanner?
Yeah.
So, Bob Saget, don't you think Paul resembles Danny Tanner a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, pretty crazy. You know what's really weird is that because I busted chops about that so much, I thought, we have a special message for you, Paul. We would like to share that with you right now, if you would just indulge me.
Hey, Tall Paul, Bob Saget here. Chris told me all about you, and I looked you up on the online thing, on that Ethernet, your Ethernet, and you seem like a good guy. Chris told me you look like me, which is kind of sad. I'm sorry, bro. And he said you act like Danny Tanner, which means you're a nice man. You're very, very nice. Well, I was playing a character. I ain't that nice, although I do dust bust now, and I'm sure you've been doing that. But I also heard that with your home services podcast, you do home servicing, so you go door to door. Are you a stud? Does your woman know about this? I mean, I know that you had a toolbox called a caboodle, so I guess that would be like the whole kit and caboodle. Is that what you meant? Because it's a fantastic kind of pun, play on words. But why would you call it the caboodle? It sounds dirty, man. It sounds like someone's butt. Anyway, I also know you're a great cyclist. Do you use the seat or you just have that pole go up your ass? Because that works. You don't fall off. A unicycle, I don't wear no seat. I just shove the pole right up my ass in my caboodle hole. Sounds like you're a good guy. So I don't know why I'm giving you a hard time. What the hell? If you're really nice, you deserve it. This is a time where we could use nice people because the world's tough enough, don't you think? I do. And it looks like you could do a good podcast. I went through it online, didn't find any dirty messages, nothing odd, no fringe groups. But I looked through. I didn't go into your profile because you scare me. If you look like me, I don't want to see too much of you. But I send you my best, man. And to you and your family. And Chris, you seem like the best guy.
Of course.
You're really holding him up. You're picking up the slack. I mean,
Nailed it.
he named his toolkit. Oh, Kit and Caboodle. That's so genius. But Chris, you seem really nice. And you wanted to help your friend out. So that's why you wanted me to do this. So all I got to say, Tall Paul, if we're in a time where you got to protect yourself and be safe because of quarantine and stuff, maybe you use your skills. Instead of a Viagra, you just use duct tape and a pipe cleaner. I don't know. It's possible, Tall Paul. I send you my best. Best to you and both your families. And I don't know, just keep riding that bike with the stick up your ass. And I wish you guys all the best. All right.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate you.
This is unbelievable. Chris, we have a guest on today. How are we supposed to get this back on the tracks? I will never forget that day. It was my birthday and it was such a surprise, but I was laughing so hard with my computer on mute. And when it was time to pick up the interview, I had a migraine for the rest of the entire time we were on with The Real Frank. But I'll never forget that. I'll just call it special.
I remember you crying about your migraine, but it was well worth it. Come on, right?
Those were straight tears of laughter and joy. I mean, I've been called Danny Tanner for quite some time, mainly because of some nuances in my behavior and my, cleanliness and my aptitude for cleaning up around the house and just being an all around great guy. But it just happens to be that some people think I actually look like him too.
Yep. Don't forget humble, clearly. Well, I love it because my son always says when he sees you, it's possible, Tall Paul.
Every time we're ordering at dinner, it's possible, Tall Paul.
Every single time. Well, listen, we only did that because we love you, man. But sometimes you got to be put in your place.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like the time when we had to bring on a co-host to replace you because what? You just kept talking over me. You just couldn't help yourself, and I'd had enough. And it was time to test the waters and see if we couldn't have a co-host step in that might just be a little bit better. Listen to this clip with our temporary co-host, Travis Ringy from Pro Skill Services.
5 years or 4 years.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool.
Hey,
so what was your first role in that company?
Paul, that's
Chris?
the third time you've talked over me in this podcast. The
You know
third
what? I'll
time.
pump the brakes. I'm excited.
You know what?
Hey, Paul's excited,
Hey,
homie.
listen.
He finally has somebody that's going to spit fire.
I'll tell you
That's
what.
what I'm talking
I'll
about.
tell you what. Now there's the fourth time. So you know what, Paul? I'm feeling a little frustrated with our little partnership here, our little co-host. I think I got to pull a card. I got to reach in my back pocket see if I have an alternate solution. I'd like to introduce my new co-host, Mr. Travis Ringy from Pro Skill. Hey, welcome to the show, buddy.
For real? You just literally
Dude, tell him who just stepped in the mic right now. That guy's a fucking legend right there.
Well, so listen, we brought Travis in, one, because I know you guys are friends, and we didn't tell Paul just for fun. So it actually worked out good that you talked over me because it gave me a good reason to have to pull him in. Man, anytime you hear Ishmael, you know it's him because he doesn't really hold back ever with anything, but that was also who you heard in addition to Travis Ringy coming on. But we had a bunch of those cool pinnacle moments throughout 2020, and actually I can think of a handful too that I've thought about as well. But those are four that really stand out. And man, I can only imagine with the lineup that we've got for 2021 of what we're going to pull out of it. We got some pretty cool guests that have already came on and also that are about to come on. So I'm super excited for it. And
I would just say to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for spreading the word. Most of our listeners now are hearing about us from other contractors, which is really cool. And we just love giving back. So keep the feedback coming. We are not going to bog you down with sponsors and a bunch of, spam content.
That's
This
right.
is going to be straight and to the point.
That's right. Straight to the point. Take notes. Take action. No 0 days. Until next time, we'll see you.